Have you seen the movie Psychic Witness, Fall of a Serial Killer? Or have you watched Through the Eyes of a Killer? Well, my guest today is an author, a psychic detective, and she has worked on so many projects. And so her name is Nancy Orlen Weber, and I am so excited to welcome her to my show so that she can tell us what part she played in the movies I asked you if you've watched. Nancy, welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Oh, Jennylyn, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
I am fascinated by people like you. And this is why when my friends encounter someone like you, they reach out and tell me, Jenny, you have to interview this person, which is the message I got from my friend who referred me to you. So Nancy, we're living in a world where a lot of it is material, a lot of it has to do with science and facts, and a lot of people, if they cannot prove something mathematically or scientifically, they just discard it, or they call it nonsense, or they think it's some kind of a con game. But you have proven that not everything that we have a science or a mathematical equation for does exist with us on this planet. So why don't we start with your career as a nurse, and then you tell us about working as a psychic detective and what that means.
Sure. Nursing taught me my love of service. Fortunately, I was very young when I began. I was a nurse licensed at age 19. And the first time I remember using the gifts that we all have for nursing career was a man was on a stretcher being brought in, and his doctor handed me some orders, and I looked and it said congestive heart failure. And I said, why are you, he's doing upper GI. I don't know why it slipped out of my mouth, but I saw it. I saw the person and I didn't feel anything wrong with the heart. Feeling is everything to me, sensitivity. And so the doctor didn't hesitate. He changed orders and did an upper GI and came back to me with, how did you know? And I said, how did you not know? Because I had no idea that this was not a natural part of everybody. Like anything else. Some people can pick up drums at age 2 and play well, you know, and where does it come from?
Yeah, I must tell you why I asked you to start with your nursing, because you are the second person that I have interviewed who was a nurse, who is a remote viewer and has helped the police. So I'm bringing this to the forefront of this interview so people can see it's not one person, you're the second one. And the value you are adding to our police system. Thank you for that.
Thank you, because when you said mathematics and facts and science, I'd like to comment and say it is math, it is science, it is spirit and soul, and all of it is mathematical equations, if you will, of light wave activity. Call it from the manifesting of our creator and the light. And yet when it goes through, it's measurable. And I believe that all energy connects us all. So the energy that connects us all has information in it. And when we focus with intention, we may glimpse it. And I believe that that's what is happening in part. So nursing career, over about 11 or 12 years before I left, really taught me the usage. And the last one I worked was psychiatric nursing, which came in handy when I worked on crime. Right, because I always loved psychiatry and psychology. I was always, since age 10, researching it, fascinated by the mind. And when it came to working in it, I wouldn't work in it until I found a place that would allow me to do what I believed in, not drugs. in an acute psychotic unit. And we made magic and we made history in the state of New York because we didn't need many drugs for acute psychotic episodes. We used feelings, thoughts, food, air, water. We used the natural environment, etc. So that was incredible experience of breaking through hallucinations with my psychic gifts, etc. They came in very handy, that job and everything I was allowed to do. I was given free rein and I used it. When I opened a practice in 1975 as a psychic, medical intuitive readings, that focus and intention and background anatomy, physiology, etc. helped, didn't hinder, only the answers that came had nothing to do with what I learned.
Amazing.
It fascinates me that this is coming from better than me. This is coming from more than, and that's what I took. In 1980, we moved in August 79 to New Jersey. And I enrolled my 4-year-old at the time in karate. And the woman who taught it, long braid, about 5'2", black belt teacher. And she saw something in the newspaper the next week about my psychic communicates with animals. And she asked me, she said, can you stay after class? I said, sure. She said, we had a rape. Before she could say another word, I said, freckle face, orange hair. He picked up a stone to her head. Oh my God. And she said, would you mind telling my supervisor? I said, sure. That just plopped out. So the next week, this man is at the karate school, and just like Ernie in Sesame Street, he's standing on the wall and goes, psst. And I'm thinking, psst, do you want an E? Because I love Sesame Street at the time. And I walked over and stood next to him, and he said, tell me what you told Michelle. I didn't know she was the first female police officer in the town. She didn't. Right. So that was her supervisor. I had no idea what she was referring to. And so he was the chief of detectives, and he said, can I bring my partner to you tomorrow? I said, sure. So they sat with me, and they were opposite me, probably about 8 feet apart, I'd say, in my office at the time. And they looked at each other and said, we have a problem with the description you're giving us. I said, what's your problem? And they looked at me and said, we have 2 men answering that description. Now, what happened next is not anything I can tell you how it happens or why, other than that's why we call them gifts. I stood up, crossed my hands, and limped across to them and limped back. And I said, no, you don't. It was
Do you normally limp?
Huh?
Do you normally limp?
Not normally, although I do have a limp.
Okay.
I was born with a birth defect that makes
Okay. Okay, got it.
part of my spine missing. So sometimes it's aggravated, but not then. And it was a very distinct lip, not a mild one. If I have any, it's mild. So they looked at each other and said, how did you know? I said, no, what? Now I was me again. And they said, no, that one of them had a limp. I said, well, what can I tell you? So they went back, questioned him, he confessed. That was the first case.
And that was in 1975.
79.
So for
Yeah.
my viewers, 1 second, don't want to interrupt you. I just want to keep people informed. So from 1979, 1980, you have worked 40 years with the police as a psychic detective.
Right.
Please tell us more.
Prior to that, and this is for everybody to understand, in 75 or 76, I was asked within 6 months, I was busy. I had no idea. It grew without me growing it. And I said to myself, rather than analyze how it happens for everybody to learn, why don't I just host classes for my clients? So I did. And one of the new people who had never done anything came the time where Son of Sam who was a serial killer, and there was a film on it later. Son of Sam was loose in the streets. And that night, maybe about 9 people joined a circle with me. And they were so nervous, they wouldn't stop talking. And I said, what is going on? So they told me they were frightened. I said, okay, let's do a prayer. So we all held hands, and I sent up a prayer to God and said some things about seeing to it that he no longer harm anybody, that he come forth, that it's time for him to stop harming anyone and look in the mirror and keep people safe from him. And if it's true, I graciously ask you to have that happen. And if it is not appropriate, we're sending light anyhow. You know, that just loose, whatever came to me. And I wrote down a name. I do not remember the name. It's not accurate in my mind. It was like Robert Louis Falco. So I go around the room, and most of them go, oh, I was too scared. I couldn't even, oh, he's awful. And one woman, brand new, never did a single thing, said David Berkowitz. And I said, okay, well, it's 10:30 at night. My kids get up at 5 a.m. I'll call New York Post, who gets letters from him, tomorrow morning. Didn't have to call. David Berkowitz was arrested that morning on a parking ticket and was found to be the son of Sam. 2 weeks later, they find out he was adopted, and his real name was the name I got. So I tell people, okay, mine wouldn't have helped because they didn't even know that the murderer was adopted. Hers would have helped, and maybe it did. And maybe by her getting that name and us praying and me getting his biological birth parents, maybe that helped him feel he was connected to others through that system and gave himself up literally.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, but I knew that I could not just call the police because I had tried it on an abduction of a school bus with children. And I wrote it all down, and what happened with that one was funny, which taught me a lot about what happens with all of us and led to me working a lot with the murdered victims and mediumship. The school bus was in California, and they thought the bus was abducted by the bus driver, and I lay down and prayed and waited for visions, and I saw it wasn't the bus driver and that they were 2 men with big guns or whatever you call them, automatic weapons or what. And I saw a little girl there, and I had long brown hair and braids, and I went over to her and I told her, you're fine. The bus driver has sandwiches for you. They're going to drive you to a rock quarry, and they're going to leave you there, and he's going to walk you out to safety. So and I called the police in that county, and they said, where are you calling from? And I said, New York at the time. And they hung up. And I knew and I understood never to reach out. They found them in a rock quarry. The bus driver was innocent. They questioned everybody. It was 2 guys with guns who had just robbed a bank and were trying to get away. And one girl said, there was a woman with brown hair and braids who told me we'd be okay. Where is she?
That was you.
That probably, maybe many people, all praying and hoping to do remote viewing, because I've done it all along. And why wouldn't a lot of people do it when they hear something?
Nancy, I want to ask you this. I have interviewed other psychics. I'm fascinated with the phenomena, and I have my own reasons why. But I know that the police often frown upon this because it's so like off the charts. But you work with them for 40 years. Tell us how that happened.
The chief of detectives who I worked with on that first case brought me every unsolved case in the history of the town. We became best friends for many, many years. He's retired, but when he retired, he moved to North Carolina, and he and his wife invited my husband and I down there. And our vacation was, my husband went shopping with the woman, his wife, and I went to death row and helped him solve another murder. So that's life. Now, if I may, I get a lot of emails saying, I just need you to tell me who murdered this person, or these kids are missing this place. I need you to pick up the phone. You can't pick up the phone to the police. Most police will not work with psychics. Most of them won't. And the way they do it is they build up a lot of trust with them. And the law enforcement, whether I've worked federally also, what they have to have a desire and passion for, they don't care how it gets solved as long as it's ethical and harmless.
Yes.
Period. And those are the ones who speak up, hire psychics, work with them, ask for anything, because they will use whatever tools are available to solve a case. The ones who don't either have, and I'm going to call them out on it, egos. I'm not saying every psychic does what they claim to do. Absolutely not. I know that. And I know that I can't do it all. I'm well aware of that. And one of the things that happens is they pass you along when they credential you. So if a law enforcement officer credentials you, that's okay. There are federal agencies that absolutely work in-house with psychics. They have analysts who are psychic, and they find sometimes they can work with them well, and sometimes they outsource, without saying names of agencies, not going there. However, it's always almost word of mouth by people they respect. It is not pick up a phone and we'll give them your resume. Most of them will laugh you out of the place.
Right.
Right. So it isn't, I worked with them, but I work with detectives who will come in, record it for an hour, 2 hours, 3, whatever we need on a case. A lot of times I never hear back. If the case is done, they assume either I know what happened, right? They figure she'll know, or she can follow it some other way. They're too busy. They're on to the next case. The ones I absolutely know, I have remained friends with those law enforcement officers over 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, all of those. There's a group of them. And then the federal or state ones, there's a case I worked on that was typical of, it was a killing of a state trooper, and I was called in right away, and the headquarters was in our town with the chief of detectives. And so he said, tell them what you see. And there were 3 staties, never forgot. And I said, you have this person, that's fine. And the other one, no, you have the wrong warrant. It's for this person. And 2 of them said, yeah, right. And one of them said, really? The one who said really when checking it, and I was right. So they issued the other warrant. Then that person took me in and started working with me a lot more, and the others went along because he was the boss. When it came time to find them, because they had gone someplace, I was able to find their car, I was able to find, and I knew they were out of state. And I said, you know, I could take you right to them, but I have to go. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I am told I will not know until I am there. No. That's when they drew the line, and 2.5 years, a few $1 million later, and this is way back in early 1980s, they found him. And I met him in death row later on. I visited. He is a terrorist. So had a long talk with him because I want to know who you are and what makes you tick. And if you knew him and met him in the street, you would find him a smart, kind, compassionate person. Go figure.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know some people who are very, very much into doing stuff in the dark, and the people, some of living with them cannot see it.
Masters of disguise, I call it.
Exactly. So Nancy, I wanted to, my friend who recommended me, or who said I should interview you, was watching a movie when she saw you. And she called me up because, Jenny, I was watching this movie last night. This woman in New York, the psychic woman, caught a serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about that movie and that particular killer that you helped the police to find?
It's a long story.
Okay, tell us. I want to hear, and I'm sure my viewers want to hear, because serial killers
I know,
are difficult to catch, and that's why they become serial killers.
but that's where psychiatry comes in handy.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, from the very start, I went in the summer to a celebration at a friend's house. And a couple came over to me and one of them said, the wife said, I heard you on radio about the study on dreams and I love your work and I love the fact you're psychic. She's a microbiologist. The husband, who's a psychologist, said, I don't believe in any of that. I went, okay. So then I get a call from her around Thanksgiving. And she said her daughter's best friend is missing. And immediately in my mind, I knew if I look, and I felt she was dead and I wouldn't tell her. I make it a rule. If I can't be of service and really help, why am I telling you? So we can gab and, not my style. So I said, if you want, you're friends with her parents, call them and ask them to call me. I'll talk with them because they can talk to the police, or I can get the detective I work with a lot to contact the police there. Well, she didn't do a thing. So, because she didn't get time. So the next day they found her body, Amy Hoffman's, and the headlines about it said, they found her fully clothed and not harmed. They're doing an autopsy. And I'm going, not true. Oh my God, not true. She was brutally attacked with a knife. No. And she was tortured and raped. Good God, why did they even say that? And then I forget it's a newspaper, So along comes Detective Bill Hughes, who worked in the town, and we were friends by that point. And I had worked a few cases with him, and he stopped by probably to fix some plumbing for me, actually. And I said, why are they lying about Amy Hoffman? And he said, who's lying? What? So I tell him, he said, well, that's not our town. I wouldn't know. I said, okay. And then days later, and my timeline is messed up over this, big time. I felt him coming out again. I'm freaking out. I'm talking to Bill and I'm saying, he's coming out again. He's coming out again. And then I get a call that Deirdre O'Brien was thrown out of a car on Route 80.
Is this the same girl?
No, Amy
So
Hoffman.
another one. Okay.
So it's about 10 days later.
Okay.
Now they have a task force because it's two different towns. So now the state's involved, or the county. And I looked, I said, oh, okay, nothing. The next morning or afternoon, knock, knock on my door. Jimmy Moore was captain of homicide in a neighboring town, Parsippany. I lived maybe 15 minutes from them at that time, 20, something like that. And Bill Hughes was in my town at that time, Bud Lake. And the two of them are standing there at my door. And Bill says, tell Jimmy what you told me about Amy. I said, sure. So I repeat it. I'm always having to repeat it to the next one, And Jimmy looks at me and he said, will you come with us for a ride? I said, yeah, hold on. And so my kids were in school. I was free. I said, as long as I'm back by whatever, and we go. Now we rode around several times. So sequence is kind of odd. And as we were driving, because I didn't take notes, as we were driving around, I looked around and I said, I need to go to Morristown. And so we drive through Morristown and I go, he lives in that section there. Let's drive around it. The gas station's involved. The car is coming from a gas station. Let's go to the mall in Morris Township or something, wherever that was, because she was abducted there. I had them drive me into the area of parking. And I said, no, 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 go over here, go over here, go over here, until I said, stop, we're here. This is where her car was. This is where he got a knife. And I'm following it in my mind, just following the vision like a movie film.
Unbelievable.
I said, okay, this is where it is. And he's got a knife, just like Amy Hoffman. Exactly. As a matter of fact, he looks exactly like that guy. Because at that point, somewhere in that time frame, I went first to Amy, walked over to where the reservoir was, where she was found. They followed me, get there. It's like, you know, we wonder how a cat or a dog finds home again.
Right.
That, I think, you know, I just found her energy. And with Amy, I was on my hands and knees crying and begging for my life, feeling her stuff, wanting to her know that that's a part of the nurse also, the relief of suffering. I believe that if I experience what she experienced and show her I'm not afraid of what she had to go through, then she's got a friend she can anchor with. And I think that's primary for me.
So do you think that when you are getting these visions and you're reading the energy, do you think the energy is actually working with you and revealing this information to you? Oh,
Sure.
That's how it works.
I don't know.
Oh,
I
I'm
think
just asking because these questions pop into my head, and I know that the questions I'm asking are questions that I'm assuming people watching will be.
I think the mystery.
Right.
No, we won't. This is what I think of as absolute faith, that we are given gifts. How we use them determines whether they're of value or not. Only, you know, it's a little sidebar. I was giving a talk at Rotary Club one day, many years ago, and everyone, they loved it. And we talked about this case. And one guy stood up afterwards and said, "You're from Satan." I said, "You believe that? You believe Satan exists, right?" He said, "Yes." I said, "So why don't you pray for me?"
Good for you. Great answer.
Well, yeah, because I believe everything is created by the same source. So whatever it is, it's really determined by what we do with it. You can take the greatest gifts and make them into trash, and you can take trash and make it into the greatest gifts. That's up to us. So back to the case. Told you it was a long story.
It's okay.
So being that I started getting things on first name James, I kept seeing him. I kept seeing a widow's peak, dark hair, and slim, very slim build, about 5'10", 5'11". And I'm driving with them. I'm in the back seat and I go, "Oh my God, he already killed in Florida. And he went to prison for murder and he killed his cellmate." So as I'm giving one, the next piece follows. It's like the doors keep opening from one to the other, as if it's giving me permission. Once I look at one, okay, you can see the next one. Okay, you can go here now. So it was taking me through those stages. And then I got his initials of some sort, something, he's Polish. Florida is going to be sued by New Jersey for letting him out on parole after 2 murders. That's how I'm talking. And I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, who's crazier, the parole board or him? So I also feel that his history was in New Jersey, growing up in Morristown, and that everyone knew how nuts he was then. I said, he was trouble back then. So I wish people would learn, see something, say something, get help.
Wow.
Get the person. Because these children grow up not being helped sufficiently by the family because they're shamed or whatever. And this is not community then. We can help every child. We are responsible for everyone, all of us together, not apart. So when we separate and we hold tight and we don't let people know what's going on, because it turned out one of my good friends went to school with him. And his mother would come in nightgowns to the school, in nightgowns, crazy, crazy stuff. No one did anything about it. He
Amazing.
set fire in woods and more stuff. They all knew this. And that's what just, that part of it is, okay, folks who just go like that to everything, open up your eyes, open up your heart, and use yourself any way you can to make a difference without harming you. Balance. So to continue the story, we go on, and I'm going crazy now. And I go, let's go to Mendham. We're going, okay, so 2-3 car rides. I don't know how many hours we're doing this. And hours go by and I go, okay, I want to talk to Mendham. So he said, okay. I said, I need a police station over there. I can smell police stations ahead, I think. And so we go in. Now there are 2 detectives on task force and the captain's sitting at his chair and I'm with the 2 and they say to him, listen to her, she knows something. I knew nothing. I just knew I had to be there. I followed the guidance. And so he said, what? I said, well, you gave a ticket, you didn't give the ticket, but one of your patrol officers gave a ticket in the summer to a man, and he will know who. The patrol officer's last name begins with a C. And he said, well, we have 2. I said, the hard C, not the soft C. He said, oh, you mean Costanza? I said, yes. I don't know where any of it is coming from. I just trust the gift. I have to. Right?
How long did it take for you to start trusting yourself with the information you were getting? Just a side, I don't want to miss this question.
Always in my crib.
Mhm. Really?
In my crib, I had somebody tell me what's up. I never talked about it
Wow.
because I figured everybody had their own.
Mhm.
I didn't know. And when I did, my family kind of backed away 10 feet because it was always right. And I knew things ahead of time. My mother was terrified of it, angry at it, whatever. I didn't discuss it. I just did it. I didn't really, that's why nursing really helped me see the usefulness of controlling it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that explanation, because I have to tell you, and please, I don't want you to lose track of the story. So remember where I'm stopping. It's very difficult in this world to be who you are when you're different.
Oh,
Because
oh my God, yes.
we measure ourselves so much on the feedback of other people. Used to for me, because now I've finally grown into who I am. And I don't give a rat's, you know what people think of me, because I'm here for my journey. I'm not here to please anybody.
No.
I'm here to be the best person I can be and to be my individual, unique self. And the day that I started to embrace that fact, in reality, it's the day I found myself, my life, and my peace and happiness. So I applaud you for embracing it and not caring about the judgments that come with it. And one last question before we get back to your story, because it's burning holes in my mind as you speak. Have you ever been suspect in any of these cases because of your knowledge?
Nope, never.
Okay, great. Now let's go back to the story.
Never. No, that's fine. I think what it's not about that difference that needed approval or disapproval. There are other areas in my life that I had to work on.
We'll talk about that too. Hopefully we have enough time.
I think we all go through that journey.
Yes.
When we break free of that, it's like,
yes. I have never been happier or freer than I am right now. And I have set so many boundaries for my life that no one is allowed to violate them.
That's
and
what
I live respectfully of other people's boundaries also.
Don't we wish everybody could? So to go back to the story.
Yes, let's go back to our story.
So Jimmy and Bill and I left, and Jimmy would call me every day and he would say, I don't know why Costanza is not being reached. He's away on vacation. We didn't have computers then. We didn't have anything. We didn't have cell phones, so they couldn't reach him. And then the next Monday, Nothing, 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 nothing. So we decided to go for a drive again. And nothing. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. So I got frustrated. And I called the psychologist, who was also a hypnotherapist, the first person who had his wife was that couple.
Yeah.
Who was best friends with the now deceased Amy. And I called him and I said, I am working and I can tell you if you can keep a confidence. He said, sure. I said, I'm working with 2 members of the task force to find Amy Hoffman's killer and Deirdre O'Brien's. And I want to be hypnotized because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everything I've gotten makes absolutely no sense because I can't tell you why. Would you hypnotize me? He said, I can't. I said, why not? He said, I am the psychologist hypnotist for the case. I said, what if I tell you I'll have a detective with me? Does that help you? He's on the task force. I'll bring him. He said, oh, okay. So Bill came with me and I'm in hypnosis and I've learned I get out of it by myself. My control stuff, boundaries too. So I'm in there and I see what looks like a brown hatchback by a stop sign or a light and an American flag on the corner. And I see a big burly guy with a big hunting knife get out with a big beard. And on the right, I see a woman getting out the other side trying to run away and drop one shoe in the gutter, so to speak. And the car behind sees the guy get out with the knife. And I'm watching all this. And he gets out to attempt to stop the guy, sees him with the knife, runs back into his car and shoots away. And I go, I'm done. This wasn't James. I don't know who this was. And oh my God. And I was telling them everything I saw while I was watching it. So now Bill drives me home and I'm about 1 minute from the police station where I lived at the time. And I go home, I'm getting ready to go in pajamas because I'm so fed up with everything. Don't know if I'm right. Don't know if the guy will kill again. Feel he will. I am so frustrated. Phone rings. Nancy, meet me outside. I'm picking you right up. So car comes, Bill, and I get in the car. I go, what is going on? He said, abduction on American Road in Morris Plains. I said, brown hatchback. He said, yeah, the guy who was right behind him ran away in the car and went into the police station and reported it. There's a shoe in the gutter right by the corner, female. He saw the woman run with pigtails. I said, oh my God, but it's not the serial killer. Let's go. So they closed every road in that town and neighboring towns. They brought in helicopters. I had never seen anything like it. They brought in state roads were all closed temporarily all night. We worked till about 5 a.m. And I said, domestic violence, you will never find her. You will never find him. This is not a serial killer. This is a domestic violent abuse case. And she won't report it because she's either dead or terrified of him. She's not, it's gone. And we never heard again about any of that. So totally frustrated, but now Bill and Jimmy know, man, she's probably right about James. I mean, she just nailed this one. So we go to the task force meeting. Now, I don't know if they tell you the background on all this. So there was an investigator in the prosecutor's office who was up for this. What nobody knew on the other side was he had never done homicide in his life, never worked a homicide case. Now, I knew the prosecutor, and the prosecutor was a political animal who always wanted me to help and never tell anybody, and he didn't want to go straight to me, and I had confronted him about it. So here he gets the next investigator up. He never should have been up next. Never, ever. And Jimmy and Bill and I are talking throughout before we go to task force meeting. I said, look, the guy has tried to run off many people, including Deirdre O'Brien's sisters. I said, make you a bet. He, not just one, he's been attempting to abduct many women off the road, same way, because I described how he did it each time. And they would shrug and say, I don't know, because even if they did know, they couldn't tell me. And I understood that. We go to task force, the prosecuting investigator sees I'm with them and throws us out.
They knew you?
Oh,
They
yeah.
knew of you.
Oh, yeah. He knew me through the prosecutor also, and because I worked so many cases by then that were known and talked about. So we left, and nothing was told about that to me, about what, other than they were in shock. Jimmy said, in my life, I have never heard of anyone discarding anybody at a task force meeting. And he was the elder, ready to retire shortly. So we leave, and I get thoroughly fed up with everybody. I am so disgusted. And Thursday nights or Fridays, sometimes I would have classes, and nobody knew the cases I worked except way after. And if news leaked or something, that I wouldn't leak. But 4 people showed up only that night, and I knew them for quite a while at that point, and worked with them long, and I trusted them. And I said, look, I'm going to talk to you, but you cannot talk to anybody about this. Do you understand? And will you keep the confidence? They said, yes. I said, okay, we're going to keep a circle alive about something. So join hands. And we spoke to God, and I guided it in just an overall sense of, please bring back to James Kerr's something itch all the pain he has inflicted on women. Stop him from ever inflicting it again on any woman or any other person at all. In prison, outside of prison, it is time the light be shown on him. Shine it brightly and stop it. And if it is meant to be, please do this now. So next morning, Jimmy calls me, he goes, Nancy, what did you do? I said, what did I do? He said, James Kadavich. I said, that's the whole name.
Are you kidding? That's how quickly your prayers get answered. Where are my prayers going?
He said,
That's amazing.
you told us that there would be 1 hair and 1 drop of blood, and that's exactly what there was. 1 from Amy and 1 from Deirdre that had convinced, and that's what convicted him for life. So that didn't end everything. Many years later, when we started Court TV, I was on the first stories, the first group of stories, etc. And during the break for lunch, Jimmy and Bill and I sit down. Now they can talk. They're both retired. They said, we have to tell you something we never told you. The task force meetings weren't task force meetings. The investigator, and we've never seen that before, had 1 friend, 1 captain that he took behind a closed door, and no one ever knew what they were talking about, and no one was allowed to share anything. That's our task force. And Jimmy said, never in our lives have we ever seen that before. Okay. Further, I'm a minister who did a lot of weddings, thousands, but one of them was at a catering home owned by a woman who, in the midst of prepping for the show, I had just had my hair done, and I walk in to do a wedding, and her name's Nancy too. And I go, hi, Nancy, how you doing? She goes, I'm fine. How are you? She said, you know what? She said, do you remember the case? I said, yeah, matter of fact, I'm doing a Court TV show about it. She said, what'd you do? So I told her. She said, you're the one? She said, my husband is the one that got the CB from the truck driver when Deirdre was thrown out of the car. And you're the one who told them that that's what happened to Deirdre. And you looked in. So that was the link. Gets more and more. So everywhere I went, there was a link about somebody involved in the case. It was the strangest thing.
Fascinating. This is fascinating. Can you believe we've gone 45 minutes? But we have to keep going because we can't stop here.
Okay, so with several of them all connecting,
Yes.
realized that Deirdre was more the connection than anything, because on her dying words, she thanked the truck driver who covered her. Her dying breath was to give a description of the killer so that nobody else. years go by and I have a bookkeeper, Monica. And Monica walks in one day and she goes, I didn't know you worked on the Kadavich case. I said, yeah. She said, I saw you on TV last night. I said, no, okay. And she's holding a big box.
Yeah.
And said, did you know I worked with Deirdre's father, Jim O'Brien? I said, no. She said, well, I was his right-hand woman, and I also transcribed everything for him because the prosecutor, not the investigator, chief of prosecutor, gave him all the information as it was going on the case because, as the prosecutor said, I have the words to back it up in writing from Jim O'Brien. It said that he apologized to Jim that he ever let that investigator work the case when he knew he should not. He never did homicides. That's how I know he never did a homicide. So Monica's telling me that he wanted to write a book. As the prosecutor was telling him everything and leaving out names, except for Jim, Jim would have Monica transcribe everything. People, everything. That James Kadavich was trying to run down her sisters one night, that he tried to run down several women, etc. Everything I said was accurate in that case. Not all cases. Everything was accurate to a dime. So that meant the light was shining on the case and everybody involved was pulling forward and helping. So she said, he decided not to make a book of it called Too Late for Deirdre. Right, because it said that.
Right.
But rather he started a center for battered wives, etc., named Deirdre O'Brien Center in Morristown, New Jersey, to help others. I'm not quite sure. I never actually look at it and remember, other than that was his choice. And she said, so then I asked him, what does he want me to do with all the proof? He said, whatever you want. She hands me the box. She said, now you got it all. So I have all the proof of everything that happened during the case.
That you predicted.
Well, not only what I predicted, but everything that actually happened. It's out of the mouth of the prosecutor. Holy cow. I've never had that. Well, I did a couple of times. I've had pictures of evidence rooms. They've given me file. I mean, it's crazy. But once trust is established, they know I'm not going to mention names appropriately. I'm not going to do any of that because you break a rhythm of trust and honesty and ethics. Once it's broken, you're gone anyhow in your own consciousness and your own heart. So that's the case. I know that Deirdre was totally accessible. I had since met so many people who, there was another woman named Deirdre who worked at the same restaurant with Deirdre who called me from Ohio. She moved out that day, terrified that he was after that person's name. She didn't know whether he had showed up at the restaurant or how he knew. So yeah, and it was a gas station his brother owned. His brother moved out of town, closed that gas station, moved away. I mean, things were hairy, and the investigator, prosecutor, his brother moved away and wanted nothing to do with that guy, his brother, because it was all ego on his end. I always wanted a film on ego kills. That's how I would title it, because his ego, without his ego interfering, Deirdre's death wouldn't have happened. But I found, because Tommy Costanza did have a ticket. He kept it in his drawer. I spoke with him. We became friends. And Tommy kept it for years. He knew it was the wheel, that tire. He called it in along with 4 other townships, calling in James Kadavich's name before Deirdre was killed. And the prosecuting investigator blew them off because I knew his secretary years later. She's somebody I met and knew well. And she said, yeah, he said he already looked into that. No, he didn't. So I'm saying all that for many reasons. Being psychic is one part of being a human being, I believe. I believe all of us, you call it intuition when it gets more the senses involved, it's more psychic, but to me, a psychic is really listening to your soul, who gets a creator. So be that as it may, I believe that we all have gifts to do something worthwhile here.
I agree with you 1,000%. And I think our egos are usually the blockage because we cannot accept that something that we weren't taught in school that's not popular with the people we hold in high esteem, then it can't be of
Ah.
any value, which is very unfortunate, but can't tell people what to believe and how to live.
You make an excellent point when you say when we hold them in high esteem. And there's a funny title for a book years ago. If you see the Buddha in the street, kill him or shoot him, something like that, which just means it's all about don't scorecard yourself against others. Don't put anybody on a pedestal. We're human. And, you know, you're saying that so clear. And I hope everybody hears you loud and clear. It's about your ego is intact as the self-identification.
Mm-hmm.
That means we keep our boundaries. We're part of a universe where every living form is connected. And whoever doesn't respect it, I want what I call the boomerang effect. If my frequency is high and my belief system doesn't drop because of somebody terrible, either to me or to the world, if I keep my belief system as soul to soul communication, then I'm okay. And anything lesser is going to go bouncing off back.
Agree with you 1,000%. I know that if you're watching this show, you will agree with me that Nancy is a gift to the world. And there's so many people like her. And a lot of us know nothing about them. So I'm very grateful that I was introduced to you, Nancy, and that you took the time to spend with me and discuss these things. And people should get your book. I know you are interested in Nancy at this point, you can buy her book. You should go watch the movies that she has been featured in. And Nancy, tell them where they could contact you.
It's easy. It's my name, Nancy Orlen, ORLEN Weber, WEBER.com. And my book is only there. It won't be on any of the regular.
Can you hold it up some more?
Oh, you'll see it backwards, but that is my actual badge. And that's another story I'm not allowed to tell.
No, you're coming back on the show to tell us about that.
Not that one. I'm never allowed to
can't
tell
speak
that one.
about it.
Well, I can tell you around it, but
Okay.
it says Chief of Detectives, Nancy Weber. It's a true gold shield. And
Wow.
solved something I cannot speak about. It is anti-terrorism. I don't talk about it.
Okay.
That I never. However, the rest of it I can talk about because he was a crazy guy who gave it to me. Wonderful, crazy guy who's now on the other side. So there are plenty of things that happen that you can go around. And one, pretty tough. There are things like federally I try to stay away from, only because I don't want them mad at me.
Right. No, and I get that. You can't tell everything. I understand that.
Right.
Nancy, an hour is never enough time to share someone like you with 40 years of experience. But I really believe that there are people with your gifts and they're afraid of it. I am one of those people. My gift is not as polished as yours. But I've gotten stuff throughout my life that scared me, and I don't think my family could relate to it because I only grew up with one side of my parents. So the genetic pool on the other side, I wasn't privy to until later in my life. So now it's clicking, but I've gone more than half the journey already. So
know that the measuring of when is the rhythm between our souls, which gets it from the universe and the divine light and God, and takes it all and gives it to us. And then the personal rhythm has to be a perfect match for us. So when it is, it means we've had enough of our stretching and tests and lessons that we can handle more, and then we can handle more. I told you the little story about the guy who yells out, "I'm from Satan." If it had been 10 years before, I would have been very uncomfortable. But I had enough exercising with tough people, standing up to some law enforcement and going, no, working a case where some of the officers thought the woman, and said it, she was a tramp. And had I not been able to be tested about just things like you said, about boundaries and respect, it would have been a different outcome along the way. And it would have taken more time. It was just the right time for me to use it. The universe said yes. God says, good idea. Tell her soul to, sign your kid up for karate here. Matter of fact, when you look at those things, you can look back and see how when we were house hunting, or I was, when my other husband was needing to move to Jersey to work, 5 homes were sold out from under us. Every time we bid, a real estate agent saw it there and got it first. I mean, crazy stuff. And I said, I was given a vision where we live. There was a purpose to it. And I knew that. I could describe it. I knew the price I would get it. I'd get it. No. Finally, I got that house. That's where I first moved. And within 6 months, the police were at my door calling. And that's, when you look back at it, is the rhythm and the calling from God saying, we need you to go do this and this. You're assigned.
I believe that.
The jobs. So I believe that with everything I have, that we are all given it. It's like, why did you decide to interview? Why did you decide any of that? Why did somebody connect you to others? When you look back, you see this is a perfect timing in your life. There's no, I'm already this. No, I'm just getting started as an author. I just uploaded my next book and I'm having problems when I upload it. I know my format, they're going, we can't use it this way. You need to do this. And I'm going, another lesson. So yeah, there's a rhythm between us and all.
As a child, my mother told me every disappointment is for good. And back then it sounded like gibberish, but I've lived to understand the wisdom in that statement now. And I quite agree. So we're out of time, and you're such a fascinating source of information and person that I would definitely, I say this to almost all my guests, but I'm very serious about this. If you're willing, that we do another segment at the right time.
Just pick a date and time and see when we're both free. I'd love it.
Awesome. We're going to do it.
Hey, see, your pearls of wisdom come out also, and it's a match.
Thank you. I've been writing. I believe I channel some wise soul, because I will be walking and this amazing download will come to me of something that is so profound. And I carry a phone with me and I record it, and I make daily inspirational videos. And most of them now are coming from me or from the divine through me. So there you go.
Wonderful. Oh, don't ever diminish the power of that.
No, I don't. I record each of them.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you so very much, Nancy. I've enjoyed this. I feel so privileged that I get to spend time with people like you that are making a huge impact for the better in the world. Keep it up. We're doing this again.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
And thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn, when a conversation is all you need to be inspired. And I am 1000% sure you have gotten a lot of inspiration from this fabulous woman. And I will be bringing her back soon. So stay tuned, and I will see you next time. Thank you.